It's time for the mid-year book tag. Hi, hello, to me, Tyra B, and welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hello, I'm Tyra. I mostly do vlog content on the channel, but I really wanted to step it up and bring some more sit-down content back to this channel. And what better to talk about than my number one hobby, reading. So today I'm covering the mid-year book tag. Nobody has to tag me. I'm going to tag myself. But we're also going to start with an about the reader tag because y'all don't even know me as a reader for real. So hello. Hi, I'm Tyra. I'm originally from Georgia. I live in Los Angeles, California. My typical content kind of revolves more around vlogs and doing things in LA, general lifestyle content stuff. So about me as a reader, do I buy or borrow? I'm mainly an audiobook girl, but I am a borrow an audiobook girl. Me and Libby, best friends. Me and Libby in my local library, goof troop. I do that mostly so that I don't waste a ton of money on books that I'm not 100% sure that I'm gonna like. I've done that a couple of times back when I was mostly an Audible kind of girl. And so we've scaled back. We've scaled back and we've tapped into our local library. And I love Libby. I love my local library. You cannot take audiobooks away from me truly. Like I need them for my walks. I listen to them when I wash dishes. I listen to them when I work from home. What's the downside here? Like I'm not wasting money on like physical copies of stuff. And if I really like the book, the audiobook that I've borrowed, then I go buy it. Simple. One at a time or juggling. Technically according to the trackers, I juggle, but I'm really a one at a time kind of reader. It's not hard to differentiate stories, but it's hard for me to get into a book and then not finish it before like wanting to get into another book, if that makes sense. So I'm definitely more of a one at a time. Even though I'll start multiple books at once, I'm only ever really reading one at a time, listening to one at a time. At one point, I think last year, 2023, I would listen to two different audiobooks on a regular basis at a time. I'd listen to one during the day during my walks and all my daytime activities, and then I'd have one that I listened to only right before bed, and not like right before bed in the actual cute adult comfy, all the lights are off, you're winding down in bed for a full hour. It was more like I turn on a secondary audiobook, turn on a 30-minute sleep timer, put it down, turn over, and I'm asleep before it's even 15 minutes. Like it's really just my bedtime stories if you want to think of it that way. So I stopped doing that because I wasn't getting very far in those books. And specifically the book that made me stop was Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I was listening to that book at night and it took me so long to really get into it because I was only listening to a few minutes at a time. But once I got into it, I got into it. Okay. So that's one book at a time. Do I DNF a bad book or keep going? My personal rule of thumb, and because I listen to audiobooks, it's a little easier. You might be able to do this with ebooks as well, but I try to give any book I'm reading, I'm listening to, I try to give it a fair 20%. I got to get at least through 20% before I decide whether or not I want to keep reading or not. And I'm also not really a big DNFer in general. I'll definitely, what is it? Not right now. I'll definitely NRN a book before I DNF a book. There's literally probably I could count on my hand how many books I've genuinely DNF'd, but a lot of books I can't really get into at the moment, or whatever's going on is not really fitting my schedule, it's not really fitting my mindset. I'm real good to NR in a book until I'm ready to pick it up again. And I have gone back and finished books that a book I'm going to talk about today. You're going to get sick of me talking about it. It was an NRN. So, yeah, I don't really DNF books. I have love here for everybody. Just, wow me. Physical, audio, or ebook. I've said I'm an audiobook girly. I did start out with ebooks that I managed to get for free. And that is how I got back into the hobby of reading for leisure. But, once I started doing an hour and a half long commute to work every day, one way, hour and a half back, ever since I started doing that, I really tapped into audiobooks to really pass the time. So I don't even like I have a few ebooks saved on my phone in the books app, but I don't really read ebooks anymore and I don't read physical books, but I will pick up a physical book of an audiobook that I really enjoyed. I think I added this question myself to the about the reader tag. Last question for the about the reader tag. Which book tracker do you use? I use Goodreads, Fable, and Storygraph. You know, I have my preferences. I do prefer Goodreads overall just because it's the one I started out with. It's a simple enough UI, like user friendly UI. And truthfully, I just started using it first. And so it has all of the books that I've TBR'd ever. And then I just started using Storygraph and Fable. I'm not going back and adding all those books. Like I did the transfer. Yeah, the transfer wasn't cute. So I do use all three consecutively, but I do give priority to Goodreads because it's a very user-friendly interface compared to Fable. It's all fun and colorful. It's got the book clubs. I enjoy Fable. I definitely appreciate that Fable has a more detailed way to rate books, their stars and stuff. Storygraph is it's brick and mortar. It's brick and mortar. It's there. I believe a black woman founded Storygraph, so that's why I'm still using it. I'm still using it. But I don't rate books on Storygraph, and then um I'll give my main rating to Goodreads, and then I'll give a more like precise rating on Fable. But I try not to go into like the character stuff unless it really, really stood out to me. I'm not I'm not much of a review girl. You're gonna find this out. I'm not much of a review girl. I can get into it. I can try. I can for you. For you, Mancheri, I can be. What is that from? I give a book that I finished there a couple of stars and I keep pushing. But those are the trackers that I use, and I will talk about them a little bit more now when we get to the mid-year book tag. Before I get into the mid-year book tag questions, I'd like to give a couple of stats of where I'm kind of like sitting up at this point of the year. So I'm filming this on July 2nd. Fun fact that July 2nd is technically the midpoint of the year. When you do all the maths, when the maths be mathing, mate, July 2nd is the actual mid-year point of the year unless it's a leap year, which 2025 is not. So I am filming this on like at the mid-year, so this is accurate stuff, okay? You ready? My original reading goal for 2025 was 52 books, same as it was last year for 2024, 52 books. For 2024, I ended up reading 80 books by the end of the year. Well, 79, but that's a story for another day. I think 52 books is a solid amount of books to read, especially when reading is not like my job. Like, I'm not a book influencer. And so, like, 52 a year, that's one book a week. So, out of the 52 books that I'm supposed to be reading this year, I've read 39. The book that I just finished reading is called Fliers by Noué Kirwan. And the book that I'm currently reading is Ride With Me by Simone Soltani. And the genres that I really tap into the most are contemporary, fiction, romance, mystery, thriller, self help, memoir. Did I say thriller? I love a thriller. Let's get to the mid year book tag part. I got this list of questions from Sarah Caroli. That is who I saw do the mid-year book tag. I know it has existed for a long time, but I am just getting into the bookish, booktuber, book talk, bookstagram space, and so my feed is really fresh with like current booktuber stuff. So Sarah is where I saw the mid-year book tag. So I do have my laptop here, so I'm gonna need this to put this behind the camera. All right. First up, the best book that I've read in 2025. The best book I've read in 2025. The top three that come to mind right now that I've written down is Matriarch by Tina Knowles. I think this book was really great just because, aside from me being a fan of Beyonce, aside from me being Beehive, Miss Tina's book, it helped add a lot of context and meaning behind a lot of these little stories and little parts that we know about Beyonce's career, her her how she was raised. And so Miss Tina's book kind of dives into it's a really nice context on if you're a Beyonce fan, but it's really nice context also about the history of Texas. So I do recommend reading Matriarch by Tina Knowles. The next book that I think is one of the best books that I've read this year is The Son of the House. I read a lot of like dual POV stuff. And I love a story where everything comes together. I love the story where everything comes together. I believe it did make me sad though. Not sad. I was rooting. I was rooting and didn't get what I wanted, but you know, it was better for the story. So I definitely recommend The Son of the House. And the third and last best book that I read in 2025 did not come out in 2025. I didn't even start it in 2025. I started this book in November. What happened was I checked it out from the library. I borrowed it on Libby, and the loaning periods are 21 days, and I waited until like day 18 to start reading. I liked it, and then I had to return it and there was a big behind line, super long queue. I got back in queue. I don't remember what month I got access to it again, but as soon as I got access to it, I jumped back in. And I am talking about none other than Real by the queen herself, Kennedy Ryan. I really love Real. It was a much longer book than I was expecting, but it was very much worth all of it. I would love to get my hands on a copy of this new cover. It is Gorgina, and I love Kennedy Ryan, and I'm gonna catch up with her at one of these events. You know, I had to miss the one in LA that was a couple of weeks ago, but just you wait. She is a delight to interact with on Twitter. So the next question, the best sequel that I've read so far this year. I don't read a lot of sequels. I don't read a lot of sequels, at least not this year. I have read a couple of series, but I read them in 2024. If I find a series that I like, and I usually accidentally stumble into series. I usually accidentally read the second book and then go back and read the other one and catch up. So I didn't have a lot of books that were part of a series to read this year, but the main one that I read is The Chow Maniac by Vivien Chien. Is that what happened? Oh yeah, it's right here. Chow Maniac by Vivien Chien, as well as the second sequel, which is in my office, but Peking Duck and Cover. Those are two sequels in the series. That is the series that got me back into reading for leisure from the jump. Like back in 2022, Death by Dumpling. Yeah, Death by Dumpling is how I was like, oh, reading might be fun again. And so I really recommend finding a small little series like this, little mystery series, cute, and getting that. And so I got the Chow Maniac as well as Peking Duck and Cover as gifts from my sister for I think Christmas and my birthday. Out of the sequels I've only read a couple of sequels, so there's that one and that one. But I also read The Love Lyric this year by Kristina Forrest. And this is a book in a series that I was anticipating. I was waiting for The Love Lyric to come out. So compared to the other books in the series, it was my least favorite, but I was really excited for it to come out, and so I did read it right away. I believe I'm trying to remember if I pre-ordered it or if I was just like first in line. I don't know, but The Love Lyric. New releases you haven't read yet but want to. I adore my black romance authors, but they can't take Emily Henry from me. Mm-mm. Great Big Beautiful Life. I pre-ordered Great Big Beautiful Life on Audible as soon as I heard about it. It's only because like I got a deal for something else and I had 3 credits and then I had 2 extra credits to use. So I pre-ordered Great Big Beautiful Life and I haven't had time to get around to reading it yet. I think just because when I'm reading my books from Libby, I want to, get through them, return them so other people can read them. I'm waiting in line. And so knowing that Great Big Beautiful Life is like waiting in my back pocket, waiting for me, I think I know it might be a while before I read it, but I do still want to read it. I'm still excited to read it, I promise. And the other new release I haven't read yet is I don't know if it's out. I'm gonna have to double check on that. No Ordinary Love by Myah Ariel. I read the first book. Really looking forward to this one. Yeah, I'm not gonna give too many details of plot. We got a lot of questions to get through, but No Ordinary Love by Myah Ariel. I'm coming for you. It was my turn. Like, I got a notification, like, right before I sat down to film this, that No Ordinary Love was ready for me to borrow in the Libby app. So I went ahead and did that. So that'll be soon. I'll probably read that in the next couple of weeks. I got a couple things on my itinerary. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Okay, so when I talk about authors I love, I'm always talking about romance. Even Vivien Chish, she a little mystery, a little cozy mystery. Late last year, I discovered this author and discovered a whole new genre, suburban paranoia. I love me a suburban paranoia. Sherry Lapena got a new book coming out. Okay, I'm ready. I heard about it like a week ago. Now I'm foaming at the mouth. She didn't see it coming. I'm coming for you. Okay, I'm excited. I'm ready. And in the same vein, you might not know this. I'm a huge Avatar: The Last Airbender fan. I'm a big fan of the other Avatar franchise as well. Avatar: The Last Airbender has a series that follows, some of the historical avatars. And apparently, also found this out like a week ago, The Awakening of Roku is coming out this year, allegedly in October. They don't even have cover art for it yet. I'm ready. They're tapping me on the shoulder and asking me to leave because I'm outside the bookstore ready. So, this book in the Avatar series is written by Randy Ribay, which not all the other books are, but I highly recommend if you're a fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, that whole universe, read the books, not the graphic novels. You can read the graphic novels, read the books. Do it. Books that were my biggest surprise. There are two that were pleasant surprises and one that was like a less pleasant surprise. So we'll start with the less pleasant, we'll get it over with. Autopsy by Avin Jogia. Jogia. I've never known the proper way, but America's Heartthrob from Victorious Beck. Yes, this is his book. When he announced this book on social media, I wasn't able to get a super good look at the cover. I knew it was called Autopsy, and I know it was his book. And yes, I did assume it was a memoir, which I do enjoy the occasional celebrity memoir. I thought it was a memoir, and so I was really excited to read it for that. And I knew it was going to be like a hard one that like kind of exposed deep dark secrets of like growing up in Hollywood and growing up on TV and stuff. So I assumed it was a regular memoir. And then when I got it, it turned out to be more of a poetry memoir. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not what I was expecting. I did still enjoy reading it, but it took me like 2 hours total. Like just finishing some morning work. I finished it really quickly. And I was kind of hoping for a little more. I was hoping for a little more. That was a surprise that it was a poetry memoir and not a normal memoir. The other big surprises were books that I jumped into. Oh, I didn't talk about. When it comes to picking books, I'm very heavy on not judging a book by its cover, but like you can be excited for a book by its cover. So I have a bad habit of picking books that just have pretty or like nice colors or bright colors on the like unless it's a book that I otherwise know that I want to read. The order that I pick books does sometimes depend on how pretty the cover is, unfortunately. And so these two books I picked because of how pretty the cover was. And I thought they were like very normal, traditional romance, but they both turned out to be a little more contemporary romance, which I really enjoyed. The Last Minute First Lady by Tinia Montford. I was not expecting to like this one as much as I did. I didn't expect to resonate with this as much as I did. Not the politician part, but just the family stuff that she was going through. So I it was a very nice contemporary style romance. Still very, very, very cute. I love a marriage of convenience. I love a fake dating. And the other one is 4 Weekends and a Funeral by Ellie Palmer. Hey, cousin. 4 Weekends and a Funeral. I don't even know how I thought that was going to be a normal romance, but it deals with grief pretty well, and also like grief and wanting to be strong for other people who are grieving more. I think this book does a good job of like tapping into that. So 4 weekends and a funeral. It's like the opposite of fake dating, literally. Favorite author, debut or new to you? I've had both of these books on my Goodreads TBR for quite a while. Not really even putting together that it's by the same author. Damilare Cuckoo, big fan. You made a fan out of me. Not a debut author, not this year, but new to me this year. I read both of these books this year. First, I read Only Big Bum Bum Matters Tomorrow. I did kind of feature that in my last reading vlog when I did a read in the park with a black owned indie bookstore here in LA, and nearly all the men in Legos are mad. I read that while doing some chores like last week. I really like both of these books, and I really like Damilare Cuckoo's writing style. I read a lot of Nigerian, Ghanaian authors and stuff. So I was an African American studies minor, so I'm always down for like being educated and immersed in like a black culture that isn't my own. I'm Black American South. That it's Georgia South at that. Like not even nothing crazy. So especially when like books from different authors that come from the same culture start like crossing over, and I'm recognizing names. I've got a better mental map of Nigeria. It's all great fun. So I'm really enjoying Damilare Cuckoo. We'll be looking out for anything else that comes out. Juicy category, newest fictional crush. Y'all gonna hate me, but I do not be crushing on these folks. Like, yes, I'll squeal and kick my feet up a little bit at something cute or like, a certain kind of scene. I don't know. I like the relationship I got. So if I had to pick newest fictional crush, Angel from The Love Lyric by Christina Forrest. I really like his musical side. I like that he's down to write a love song. I love me a good love song. Like I said, I definitely like the other Green Sisters books more. I think I like Angel the most out of all the Green Sisters men. So the other crush that I guess is a crush is Cannon Holt from Real by Kennedy Ryan. I think this book is like the ultimate contemporary romance. But Cannon Holt, once we got around and figured out what we wanted, I like him. I guess even I could say Henry from The Passion Project, which I did recently read. Passion Project by London Sperry. I think Henry was a really good guy. The only I mean, I didn't. There's no real. I could have just. Yeah, I'm gonna add Henry onto this. It's not in my little notes, but I'm gonna add Henry from the Passion Project to this. It pained me to see how little he was getting back in return. The reciprocation was not reciprocating. That a couple of these books, the female main character was not reciprocating the way they should have been. Treat that man right. Books that made you cry. I have not shed real tears from a book, but I've gotten real touched in the heart. Needy Little Things by Chanel Desamores. Yeah, I don't read YA that often, and I don't really care for YA romance because I feel like I don't need to be in a business like that. But a YA thriller, yeah, you got me. Needy Little Things is a crazy book, and there's a touch of magical realism in there, which usually isn't my favorite either, but it works so well in this book. Yeah, I was scared for them kids. I was scared for them. They had me scared at the end for real. So, that got me real emotional, really tapped in. Next book, The Son of the House. I've mentioned this book earlier. I feel like I respect the job and the responsibility that comes with motherhood. And I think it's like a super important job. Whenever it's time for me, I want to do it right. And this book kind of dives into two moms, and they go through a lot together. So, it really touched me. Really touched me. And then last, Rootless by Crystal Zara Appia. I think it also feels very similar to the son of the house, but like it's like told differently. And this one, I think Rootless had me the closest to crying at the end of the book because what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean? Ah, books that made you happy. First book that made me happy is The Fox Wife by Yang Chu. Same thing about like Nigerian, Ghanaian, African authors. I feel the same way about Asian authors. I feel like they really open up a lens to like, especially the contemporary writers. But The Fox Wife is more of like based in mythological fantasy stuff, and so I loved seeing that like play out in a modern day kind of setting. I finished this book on a plane. I mostly worked on this book on a plane on my way to and from Vancouver. Loved definitely on the side of the foxes. Okay, definitely. Other books that made me happy. Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan. This was a new release this year. I was really excited for this to come out. I think this was something else that I pre ordered on Audible. And once again, it is my least favorite book in the series, but this is still a fantastic book. I appreciate Kennedy Ryan. Like, we've gotten the love story, we've gotten the family love stories. I appreciate her writing a love story that, you know, celebrates women who want to remain childless. And I believe in the audiobook there was like an excerpt at the end where Kennedy Ryan, I think she just left like an author's note, but she was like, all of my female characters will be strong black women who don't necessarily like need like, and they will always get their happily ever after, but their happily ever after will never be based solely on being with a man. It'll always be more based on like personal goals, personal success, personal growth, living the life you want to live, working the job you want to work, doing well for your community. So I appreciate that there is a book in the series that really amplifies that. We've got all of our Skyland girlies, and I love Soledad. The most beautiful book that you've bought or received this year. This might be hard. Okay. This book, Watermelon and Redbirds. This is a Juneteenth and Black Celebrations cookbook by Nicole A. Taylor. This book is gorgeous. You know, I don't cook very much and I don't cook well. So I definitely wanted to add this book to my have this start my cookbook shelf actually. And there's so many nice cool like hold on, let me do you see how delicious this stuff look? Look at that. There's funnel cakes on the back. I was lucky enough to pick up this book from a thrift store, literally from Goodwill, and I think I picked it up for either $2.99 or $3.99, basically in brand new condition. So I'm really glad that I was able to snag that. I think it's gorgeous. I definitely want to use a couple of that. It is past Juneteenth, and I did have it for Juneteenth, and I incorporated it in my work and in like a newsletter that I wrote. I haven't gotten a chance to cook anything out of that. And so I think I'll start with either a dessert or a drink. Otherwise, the other most beautiful book that I've received, like I said, I don't be buying books for real unless I've already read like listened to the audiobook and then I want the physical copy because I don't want the physical copy for everything. And that's just gluttonous. The other most beautiful book that I've received this year is now part of the decoration. Prose to the People by Katie Mitchell. This is a book that literally celebrates and like gives historical context and just uplifts black indie bookstores. And I literally won this in a giveaway. Like, here's the giveaway card. I won this in a giveaway. Look at that. And we have Radical Hood Library from No Name. Salt Eater. Oh, Salt Eaters. Salt Eaters. They had to close their brick and mortar location, but they do still have an online store, so I can link that below. I did a community walk a few months ago where the ending place was Salt Eaters, and it was literally their going out of business sale, so everything was like crazy discounted. They were selling the furniture and everything, but we love you, Salt Eaters. I still haven't been inside Reparations Club, so that might be an upcoming vlog. Better look out for that. But yes, those are the two most beautiful books that I've received this year or bought. Add this back to the core. Books that I need to read by the end of the year. First up is The Courage to Be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi. This is one of the books where I did borrow it, but I didn't give it enough time to really get into it, so I had to return it to the library. But I do really still want to read it, and my partner has read it in its original text in Japanese. He really liked it, so I was going to read it anyway, but he really liked it in Japanese, so I will be listening to it soon. Parable of the Sower by Octavia Butler. Um, for a long time, I knew that Octavia Butler's books were like older, like they were published quite some time ago, before I was born, as a fact. So I wasn't like super pressed. Like it's one of the classics in my head, so I wasn't pressed to really get around to it immediately. But after the read in the park, which Reparations Club gave out codes for a free audiobook version of that, I did not take advantage of that before it expired. That was my mistake. But the more that time goes on, the more things that happen in the news. Apparently, Parable of the Sower is a good idea to read to keep up with today's social climate, political climate. So I will be reading that this year. And the last book that I want to make sure I read this year is called The Christmas Catch by Toni Shiloh. I love me a normal little Christmas, a seasonal rom-com, but definitely a Christmas themed romance book. This is literally just a book that I didn't get around to reading last Christmas, and I don't really like reading them out of like when it's not the season. I want to feel it. Hopefully the Christmas Catch will be something that I pick up like a week after Halloween, so that I get in as many Christmas books as I can. What books do I want to reread this year? I'm not too much of a big rereader. It happens. There's too many fun things. There's always too many fun things out there because of the nature of my work and because I host a book club for work. There's two books that I do really want to reread for like work content, and the first one is Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. I loved this book when I was originally reading it, and I suggested it in my lineup of book club books, and it's coming around. So it is the book club book for August sneak peek. Fake It Till You Bake It is the romance option for August, and so I want to make sure that I'm totally refreshed on it so that I can really engage with whoever reads the book club book that month. But it's cute and it should be a quick and easy read because I do really like it. And another book that I want to reread this year is You Made a Fool of Death with Your Beauty by Akweke Amezi. I'm gonna have to fact check that. This was another one of the books that this was actually the first book I checked out once I got my library card. I got my physical library card, and then I checked out a couple of books, a couple of manga, and quickly I was like, oh, just because I have a library card isn't going to make me want to read physical books, so I should really get onto that Libby app that people keep talking about. And so I went and borrowed the audiobook on Libby while I still had the physical book in my possession. And I did a little tandem read. It was the only book that I've done like an actual review on my Bookstagram. And I'm like 2 full years older, 2 full years more mature than when I first read it. So like I want to give it another go because at first my reaction was kind of like, girl, I wouldn't do that. That's crazy. But if you happy. But I kind of want to reread it because I think I'll definitely see it from another angle for some reason. 25 versus 27. A book that you enjoyed with mixed reviews. My most recent book, Frequent Fliers by Noué Kirwan. I don't even read reviews, but when I first found this book and I looked on the Goodreads page, the author had left her own review to clear up because a lot of people had given this book a lot of bad reviews because they thought it was like a straight up like rom-commy romance, and they were really mad at like the way the characters were behaving, and so the author left her own review comment on Goodreads and was like, "Hey, y'all, this is a contemporary romance. I'm sorry that if it was marketed like a romance, like a cute, bubbly, swirly, no problems, but this is definitely a contemporary romance." And I saw that right before I started the book, so I'm like, I had that in the back of my head, so it was perfectly fine to me. It was definitely a normal behind contemporary romance. Um, Lainey was getting on my nerves. Grow up. But otherwise it was fine. It was fine. It was a good book. What y'all mad about? My 5-star predictions for the rest of the year. Starting off, we have Vanishing World by Sayaka Murata. Big fan of Sayaka. She's crazy. Hey girl, your mind is crazy. I love it. You're sick in the head. I have this book checked out currently, and so whenever I finish the current book I'm reading, I'm gonna, get crunk with Vanishing World. When I first discovered Sayaka, I breezed through all of them books, and I could recommend them to my partner because they were originally written in Japanese, and I'm reading a mere translation. I enjoy Sayaka's stuff, and I did try to read Vanishing World already, but I couldn't really get into it because I was really into another book already. So it's almost your time, girl. Don't worry. I trust another 5 stars coming. No Ordinary Love by Myah Ariel. Really looking forward to this. I did also just get access to this book. I love the way she writes. I love the way she writes a love story and like internal conflict. So I'm looking forward to that. I just know that's going to be another 5 star. I love Hollywood based love stories. And then I just threw this on here just to, have a third round book. But When You Are Mine by Kennedy Ryan, I haven't read that yet. And so I kind of trust that anything that I read by Kennedy Ryan will probably be a 5 star in my book. Happens. That was the last question. I do have some honorable mentions. I had to honorably mention them because, like, I like them, but there wasn't like a question in this tag to talk about them. So, Passion Project by London Sperry. Once again, love you down, Henry. I don't think Henry was getting enough back, to be honest, but it is still a fun read. The first 75% of the book, fantastic. Other 25%, it was starting to make me mad. That's all I'll say on that. I still really like the rest of the book anyway. Other honorable mention, I Did a Thing by Tabitha Brown. I read this very early on into the year. I think this was like the third book that I read in the year, and I finished it like beginning of second week of January. But it's a really nice book, especially for like New Year's intentions and stuff. And there's a little bit of memoir in there too, so I appreciate that. But it's just kind of one of those books that I read to kind of make sure I keep my eyes open and that I'm living in the moment and that I'm like setting realistic goals. So I do recommend I Did a Thing by Tabitha Brown. Next book is No Place Left to Hide by Megan Lally. This is a YA book. Them rich kids get crazy. And it's completely a thriller. Completely a thriller. They was making me laugh. They was making me laugh. It was stressing me out, making me laugh. I do specifically remember that I was reading this over Valentine's Day weekend because I was driving downtown looking for a parking spot and couldn't find one. Was just listening to the audiobook, couldn't find one. Want to watch that blog? It's here. Yeah, I like this book. I haven't really tapped into see what other stuff Megan got going on, so I might have to see what Megan talking about. And my last honorable mention is Death of the Author by Nnedi Okorafor. This is one of the most sci-fi books I've ever read because it's also not my like preferred genre. Hey, Zelu, the main character is an author, and she's going through a lot of not fun, not fair things, but it is the way life is right now. She kind of puts all of that into her next novel, and so the book is tandem with like this author's life story, and then seeing how it's like the similar thing is playing out in like her novel, her sci-fi novel, and then at some point stuff starts blending together. So it was a really fun read. I think I saw like a lot of people didn't like it because it was like too confusing, but like I caught on right away, like being able to differentiate the parts of the stories. So I really recommend Death of the Author. In total, how many 5-star reads did I read this year? And it depends on which one of my book trackers we're looking at. Fable has a much more detailed, precise way to rate books. And so with Goodreads, things get like a 5-star. But on Fable, sometimes that same 5-star is a 4.8 or 4.3. And I don't rate books all the same, like depending on genre. Like I'm not going to rate 500-page contemporary romance the same way I would for a cozy mystery. So I do try to rate books appropriately to what they are. So with that in mind, according to Goodreads, I had 15 5-star books this year so far. But according to Fable, there are only 5 true 5-star reads this year so far. And that is Real, The Foxwife, Blood, Transcendent Kingdom, and Can't Get Enough. That is my mid-year book tag. Also, getting to know the author. I'm not an author. Or am I? I'm not an author yet. Working on that. Get to know me tag. If if you like this video, let me know. If you like some of my recommendations, let me know. If you have recommendations, let me know. I think you guys have gotten like a good idea of like what books I like, what kind of things I don't like, the authors I'm obsessed with. So leave some recommendations down below. I never know what new books are releasing for real. Like I'm not that tapped in. So if there's something releasing this year that you think might be up my alley, drop it in the comments. I'd really love it. As well, let's be friends on all these various tracker apps. Don't come to my story graph. There's nothing over there for me. There's not a lot over there for you. But we can be friends on Goodreads and Fable, and we can be friends here on YouTube. We can be friends on Instagram. We can be friends on TikTok. Let me know. I will leave all of my links in the description below. And I'm about to go start planning my next bookish YouTube video. So thanks so much for watching, and don't forget to make yourself proud today. Bye.